Okay, we have about 40 plus folks joining us here today. So we're really excited and thank you for being with us. I'm just going to get going. I know that you saw through the power of technology when you entered this room that we are recording this session so that you'll be able to share it with others, and we can share it with some folks who were unable to make it here today but wanted to be a participant. Hello, allow me to introduce myself. I'm so happy to have you here. My name is Megan Thomas. I am the president and CEO of Catalyst of San Diego and Imperial counties. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am joining you today, our first day back in the office at Catalyst. So it's an exciting day here on the traditional and unceded land of the Kumeyaay people. We're just so proud to be partnering with the San Diego Refugee Communities Coalition to bring this really important event, conversation, beginning of a conversation with you all here today. And I want to start by acknowledging and thanking Amina Sheikh Mohammed and Valerie Nash for really spearheading this effort. And you'll meet more of our speakers in a moment. So what are we doing today? There are just so many things going on in the world, and we have a deep heart and desire for action and solidarity around the conditions facing our brothers and sisters and siblings there in Afghanistan and the families that are here with us in San Diego and Imperial counties today. So as I said, we're at the beginning of a conversation and have invited an audience of anybody who has an interest in learning more and connecting, but primarily looking to bring some light to the issues to our friends in the funder community and to public officials and agencies who are working their hardest to be a part of these solutions. Of course, you all know that the situation is dynamic, changing not just on a daily, but a moment to moment basis. And so the words that we speak today won't be the final words, but it's important to start somewhere and to come together in this way. So I hope you can see our two purposes today are to build a greater understanding of the crisis at hand and to mobilize support and coordinated action so that the effort and energy that each of you is putting forward has its greatest impact because it knows it's happening alongside the efforts of everybody else. Our agenda today is going to be very little of me and mostly some other folks. You can see it here on the screen. And I just want to start by acknowledging that the funders and the public agencies and elected officials are bringing the power of policy and budget to the fore. And we're all very aware that in San Diego, we are graced by 4 refugee resettlement agencies that do work daily to create a welcoming place and home for the people arriving in our region. And we will have another program later that focuses on the work of those resettlement agencies, but consistent with our values of equity and building a social change ecosystem that really focuses its attention and resources on those who are most impacted by any given situation. We wanted to spend our limited time today talking with the people who are a part of the Afghan community, working on behalf of their families and community. So that's what we're going to spend our time hearing from today, but very much appreciate and acknowledge the work that's already taking place. Numerous families, I think 42 different individuals, even just at one of the agencies, have arrived already. That is ongoing work. It is important. It's just not going to be the main focus for today. Our speakers, and I'm going to introduce Amina in a moment to let her take us into the next session. You can see here before you, representing the San Diego Refugee Communities Coalition, the Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans, myself, the Afghan Community Cultural Center, and License to Freedom. You'll get different perspectives on the issues of today, starting with the situation in Afghanistan, and then working our way in a closer and closer focus to what's happening here in our neighborhoods and in our houses. I think that's where I'm going to stop so I can share with you a little bit about Amina, who probably needs no introduction, but Amina Sheikh Mohammed, who is a Master's of Public Health, is an incredible leader in our community advancing health equity throughout the county. She's the founding director of the Refugee Health Unit, at UCSD. And she is also a leader within the San Diego Refugee Communities Coalition, which brings together a number of organizations working on behalf of and side by side with the refugee community. And she and Valerie were the ones to pick up the phone and say, Megan, we need to get this information out there. What can we do? And so here we are today. And I think the best thing for me to do is to hand off the microphone to her to walk us into today's presentations. So with that, I'm going to switch screens and invite Amina to join us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Megan. It's really great to partner with you on this. I have a presentation. Is Melissa gonna put it up?
I'll put it up in just a moment.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for attending this important meeting today. We are happy to really convene this, important conversation and support our sisters and brothers from Afghan communities in San Diego and abroad. So, yeah, I am representing today San Diego Refugee Communities Coalition, and we will have some slides here. Thank you, Megan.
Can you see them?
Yeah, thank you. Next one. Yeah. Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so San Diego Refugee Communities Coalition its mission is to lead, the coalition will lead coordinated action to ensure that individuals and families from refugee communities throughout San Diego County are healthy, safe, and thriving. And communities we added because it's not only the refugee arrivals, but it's also existing refugee communities in San Diego that were born of refugee mothers and or parents. We initially been funded by California Endowment as a planning and founded as a coalition in 2019. UCSD Refugee Health Unit is the backbone organization support provides, and also Valerie Nash provides a lot of support with as of Nash and Associates, and she will be helping us today with the chat, providing additional information and so on. Yeah, so we have the San Diego Refugee Communities Coalition have 12 organizational members that are ethnic community-based organizations. The definition of ethnic community-based organization is right here and with us today on this side. The Afghan Community Cultural Center is the newest member that we have, and Mumtaz is representing that organization today. He will share more about the work the organization is doing here in San Diego. And we also have some of our coalition members today with us here. So I see some names already, but I won't call everybody, but I know Dalcois is here now and so on. We have funders and supporters for our work. We couldn't have done this work without the support of public and private support. We have list of the public supports on this side and then the private on this side. This list does not include funders who fund individual organizations on their own, but this is the coalition support that we receive from all these funders. And I do want to acknowledge funders who are here with us today and their support, and really appreciate continuous support that we've been receiving to do the work. We couldn't have done this work without your support. Next, please. Today, we have presenters that are representing the Afghan community. We have Humaira, who is the Deputy Director for Partnership for Advancement New Americans, PANA, which is an organization we all know that fights for advance to fully economic and civic and social inclusion of refugees. PANA and the leadership of Humaira, she leads to a team of organizations and advocates to proceed advanced policies and direct impact to refugee communities. Humaira is from Afghanistan and Afghan American, and she has 2 daughters. Humaira. I've worked with Humaira and enjoy working with her. And we are so happy that she's with us today to represent and talk about advocacy, what PANA is gonna do, the work that PANA is doing around that area, and a lot more that we don't know that directly she's communicating at a national level, coalitions and so on. Next presenter is going to be Mumtaz. Mumtaz is the Deputy Director for the new organizations that is here in San Diego, Afghan Community Cultural Center. And Mumtaz came to the US 2017. He worked with the senior interpreter as the US Army, and he completed bachelor's degree in political science. He has worked with the coalition as well to support with different projects. We are happy to have Mumtaz here. He is a community leader at the ground level right here, doing a lot of work in San Diego. He's going to share the gaps and the needs of the community of the Afghan communities here in San Diego. And Shabnam is with License to Freedom. She participated youth programs, and also she is a staff member supporting her community through the work of License to Freedom. Shabnam came to the United States 2017 as SIV, with similar to Mumtaz, and also her parents, with her parents and brother. She is a member of minority Hazara community, and she recently went back and returned from Afghanistan this earlier August last month. So she currently attends colleges, and she will talk to us about her recent arrival, as well as the work that she's doing with License to Freedom. I will pass it to Humaira to do the beginning of the information. Like I think you have slides, right, Humaira? You have a presentation?
I think I can do without the presentation.
Oh, I thought you did. Okay, no problem.
Yeah, no
sure.
worries. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you all for being here today. Having this opportunity to connect with you all about the unfolding crisis in Afghanistan, and discuss what needs to be done, not only today in the coming weeks, but also in the years to come. So as Amina mentioned, I'm with the Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans. We advance the full economic, social, and civic inclusion of refugees in the San Diego area across the country. And we're founded and led by refugees. We use relational organizing to build community leadership and progress policy wins for our communities. We are part of this ecosystem of ethnic-based community organizations that serve refugee communities to ensure that they are thriving in their new lives in the United States. As was mentioned, I myself am from Afghanistan. I was born there, came here as a young child, part of the very large Afghan diaspora community, and have been witnessing just, in heartbreak what's happening with Afghanistan, with my family back home, and trying to do everything that we can to support the folks back home, and also ensure that individuals who are coming into the United States, who are being evacuated and resettled, are having access to the services that they so much need. To provide a little bit of background and context to refugee resettlement, I think is important for us to talk about. Refugees have been disinvested in essentially for a number of years. We saw post September 11th that refugee arrivals dropped, and then a little bit of an increase with the Syrian diaspora that happened around 2015, and then the Trump administration came in and basically just dismantled the refugee resettlement program as we know it. Refugee resettlement dropped about 86% during this time, and during that time also the infrastructure that existed to provide refugees those very key and essential services that they need in order to rebuild their lives was just brought down to a bare skeleton. And in the midst of all of this and the new administration coming in, and a global pandemic that we know has impacted refugee and immigrant communities exponentially more, we see that the Biden administration decided to follow through on the plans made under the Trump administration to leave Afghanistan and as a result has created this, humanitarian crisis. We are witnessing, a crisis in the making. The evacuations that have taken place in the past couple of weeks have been absolutely essential. We have seen, about what's stated as around 120,000, Afghans being evacuated out of Afghanistan. Of course, these individuals are not all coming to the United States, where there's an estimate of between 60 to 70,000 of them are making their way here or have already arrived. About 20,000 of them are expected to be special immigrant visa holders. These are folks, as I'm sure everyone has heard in the news, folks who have worked alongside our military as interpreters or other kinds of services. These individuals will be resettling with their families. They are eligible for the Office of Refugee Resettlement Services. So our refugee resettlement agencies are the ones who are taking lead initially in providing them the welcome money, and some of the orientation and whatnot that initially is provided to refugees upon arrival. What we're hearing more and more of now, which is I think super essential, is when this evacuation started happening, there was a really big call for the need to expedite visas, expedite the process. We wanted to make sure that other vulnerable communities were not going to be left out of the evacuation process. So through a lot of that advocacy, the administration did decide to instate humanitarian parole. We are hearing about 50,000 humanitarian parolees will be arriving in the United States. This is a temporary status of up to 2 years right now, which is actually a lot. Usually humanitarian parole is meant for, folks who are coming in for a few weeks with, the death of a loved one or something like that. But given the crisis, the administration expanded it to 2 years in order to allow for these parolees to come into the United States. What's important to note here is that these parolees are not under the Office of Refugee Resettlement. They are not getting the same services. They're not eligible for welcome money. They are all going to need immigration attorneys in order to readjust their status, to seek asylum if they have special immigrant visa claims. In order to do all of that, they also are going to need financial support and housing that is not going to be afforded to them. And in addition to that, the estimates are that there are thousands and millions of people left behind. Currently, the estimates are that there's about 65,000 eligible SIVs still in Afghanistan, and about 1 million to 1.5 million P2 eligible folks. Those are folks who worked with NGOs, journalism, things like that, women's rights organizations that are high risk that are still in Afghanistan, in addition to, of course, the millions of ethnic and religious minorities that are high risk under the Taliban. So we're just seeing, so many different levels of this unfolding, and the need is high. The UN is estimating that there is about 1/3 of Afghanistan's population who is in risk of food insecurity and starvation in just the coming weeks. I myself, have family in Afghanistan. So much of infrastructure and how people have survived in third world countries like Afghanistan have been through remittances. Families like mine sending money back home to our loved ones to make sure that they can eat, that they have a roof over their heads. And unfortunately, during this time, Western Union and several of the large banks are no longer operating. It is impossible for us to send money back home. It's been a really stressful process for many of us, and we're urging for these processes to be put into place, as well as humanitarian assistance to also be reinstated, so that our families who are at risk no longer have some options available to them. Oh. Sorry, it's heavy. It's been a heavy day.
You never need to apologize. We're so grateful to have you here and acknowledge the full impact of what's going on.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so in terms of stateside in the United States, we've been working with the administration doing a lot of national advocacy. We're seeing that the processing of people coming into the United States and being held in these military camps, that has been really difficult for Afghan community organizations to get access to them. We're hearing from our families who are there that they don't have access to basic needs and have been trying to push for that. In the coming weeks, we are still uncertain of where folks are going to be relocated. There's a concern that they're going to be relocated into communities that don't have the network that they need, don't have the communities and the ethnic-based organizations that can really provide them that safety net. And we're urging the administration to prioritize putting refugees into the communities where they'll have those safety nets. We're also urging the administration to readjust the status of the humanitarian parolees to become refugee status so that these individuals actually have some of those basic needs. I mean, I always argue at PANA that what is currently offered to refugees without a housing stipend, without more support is already not sufficient. And so to see that we're having thousands of humanitarian parolees that don't even get access to that is a huge concern for us. And we want to make sure that they're supported. PANA is part of the Afghan American Coalition. This is a coalition of Afghan American led organizations calling for these things at the federal level, meeting with DHS, meeting with the State Department, doing congressional advocacy together. I'll post our website on the chat later on so you all can see some of our calls to action that we have been amplifying, and we really encourage you all to amplify those needs right now as well. This is the moment where we all need to make sure that Afghanistan is still relevant, that we are still calling to action, all of these things. And then we're also calling on our local members, our local governments to be providing direct and immediate financial support to refugees and parolees. The PANA conducts this survey every 2 years. We just completed it a few months ago where we interviewed about 455 refugees about the issues that they see are most important and pertinent to them. And the number one issue comes back to us time and time again is the lack of affordable housing. We found that over 2/3 of our refugee communities right here in San Diego County are living in overcrowded or severely overcrowded housing, that many of them are part of the hidden homeless where they have family members, multiple family members stacking up because they can no longer afford rent. We are urging the administration to reimagine what refugee resettlement looks like, especially right now, and to include housing as part of the refugee resettlement package. So we'll continue to do some of that work. In terms of direct support, we are mobilizing our emergency mutual aid fund to support incoming refugees and parolees. We recognize that folks are going to need immediate financial assistance. And, when COVID first hit, PANA was able to mobilize a mutual aid fund in order to support refugees. And we were able to help over 600 families along with our SDRCC partners. And that was such an effective program that we're trying to remobilize that for this immediate need. We also will continue to offer handheld in-language support to refugees and incoming humanitarian parolees. We have an attorney who is currently assisting with humanitarian parole applications, refugee applications, and also helping those parolees with adjusting of status. That's something that we're looking to do in the coming weeks and months, and recognizing that this is not a one-man show for any organization. We all need to come together in this. So creating those networks to support these families, to support these cases, not only in the months to come, but also in the years to come. So I really don't want to take too much of your time. Happy to discuss all of this in depth individually or later. And then I also wanted to introduce Mumtaz Momand. So I met Mumtaz through the Afghan community. He was already a leader, had just arrived in the United States, and he's been supporting PANA as a base builder with civic engagement, with direct community support within the Afghan community. And I'm really excited that he has been an integral part of developing the Afghan Community Cultural Center in Al Cajon. And that's, you know, an Afghan-led space that I'm sure is going to achieve so much. So I will pass it on to him.
Thank you so much, Humaira Jan. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who gave me this opportunity to introduce myself and also the community, to everyone to understand our situation and in order to know what's going on with our people here and how they're feeling and what have they left on, what do they have, and what do they up to right now. So once again, I'm very, very appreciated for being here, to have you guys all here hearing me as if you're hearing the voice of the whole community and the Afghans who are coming here and who has left their country, who has left Afghanistan. And as Omaira said, we have like 50,000 parole. So a lot of people are here in Washington. So there will be an influx of refugees here to San Diego. I just like talked to one of my friends. He is on the way. He took my address and he was so desperate what to do. So I'm going to go and start a little bit with my background information. Do you have my voice?
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you very well, Mumtaz. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much because it was frozen. I've already introduced myself to some of the people like Claire, Valerie here, and Dilkhwas, Humaira, and everybody else who knows me here from Al Cajon community, and also Mishgan Afshan is here. Very, very glad to have you too. I was in Afghanistan up to 2014. In 2014, I got privileged to come to the United States. But what happened? Why did I want to come to the United States? So I was studying and I was working with the United States Army. I actually started working with the United States 2006, and but indirectly I was very involved. Do
Oh. Well, let's see.
kind of frozen here.
Here we go. Okay.
In 2014 to the United States, but before that I was working with the United States Army from 2006 till 2012. Within these years, I suffered a lot, and there was a lot of insurgents, a lot of unknown people who were following me. And one day my dean came to me and he said, there are some unknown people who is following you. What are you trying to do? You're here in the university to study, but there are some people who are trying to follow you, and they're tracking you. They're asking for your address, your family address, your home address, wherever you're related. And fortunately, he didn't give my information to him. But what I did, I evacuated myself as soon as possible. I talked to the embassy, United States Embassy, and I told them that I'm under a huge threat. Some insurgents are looking for me and my family, so I need to get out of here as soon as possible. Then I was fortunate, I got privileged. I had to leave my country with a lot of sorrow, with a lot of tears, and came to the United States. So as soon as I came to the United States, I was so shocked. That there's a culture shock here, and I was so confused. I was lost. Everything was completely new for me, and I was trying to help myself somehow in order to do something like educate myself with this culture. And then I started to do something like education. I was so interested to education, so I started my college in Grossmont, and then after that I started to finish my I took my associate degree and went to San Diego State University. After it's my last semester. That is my last semester, so I'm doing double majoring. One major is political science, and the second major is international security and conflict resolutions. However, I'm safe right now. I have 4 sisters. They're living in Afghanistan. They're under huge threat, and you may ask me why they're under huge stress, under huge risk. So the question, the answer is very easy. You might have heard that the Taliban found the MOI server. They have all the information there. They can find you anywhere, wherever you live. So one of that so that's so one of the reason why my family, my sisters, are under huge threat. They will find them eventually through that, and somehow, we have numbers. I have put my sister's name, my mother's name, my parents' name there, so they're going to find out. And I'm going to do whatever I from my family in order to evacuate them as soon as possible, because
Mumtaz,
like this. And
Mumtaz, sorry to interrupt you.
as soon as I remember them, anytime I recall them, like I can't do things, trying to lie. There's nothing else for them. And I talk to Valerie and everyone, as the situation was bad.
Yeah, Mumtaz.
Yeah, I think we're going to try and take the video off and see if that helps. Nope. Did we lose him entirely? Nope.
Is he back?
He's still here. Well, we'll work on that. Maybe we could go to the next speaker and then come back.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is.
Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure joining today's meeting. My name is Shabnam Nayabsada, and I was born in Kabul, Afghanistan. Also, I came to United States back on March 2017 with SIV with my family. And also, we are a member of a small group of Hazara people in Afghanistan, which are most discriminated against and also most targeted by Taliban and also all the other insurgent groups in Afghanistan. In March of this year, I went to Afghanistan to get married, and it was such a hard decision to get, just because, we have been here for years, and then me deciding to go get married, it was so much responsibility to take. It was so hard to take my mom with me. Unfortunately, I could not take anyone else than my mom. It was just her and me. We went there, got married, and we came back in late August. I arrived in August 5th, just like less than 10 days before the Taliban took over the country. It was so stressful, and it was just sad. It was just it was just hard for me even thinking about, like, 10 days ago, I was in my country, and now Taliban took over the whole country. It was just like so frustrating because I have family there. I have my uncle with his kids, with his wife, and then all my in-laws. My husband was able to be evacuated from there, and he is in Qatar right now. But all my in-laws right now in Afghanistan, I talk to them every day, and they're like, it's too hard for us to stay. They're like, is there any way you could do anything? I was like, unfortunately, it is frustrating to tell them, I'm sorry, I cannot do anything right now. It is just so hard to say no to them. It's just frustrating. You cannot do anything about it. While, knowing the situation, that it is so hard, we have like some family pictures in from our wedding. I told my mother-in-law to just burn them. I'm like, you know what? Because I live in the United States. God forbid if the Taliban goes and knock on the door, because I heard they're going door by door, knocking and then asking like for people and talking like if they have anything with the US or anything. I was like, you know what? Just burn my pictures at least, you know, because what if something happens to them? And they're like, okay, so you are connected to someone in the United States. What if something happened to them? And I'm like, you know what? Just burn my pictures and my husband's too, because like, you know what? Just think that we are not existing because you guys are not safe there. That's what I can say. It's just for your safety, just do that. It was just so hard telling these things to your family, you know, to just, you know, ignore us that we don't exist because we cannot do anything to pull them out of there, or we have to like just cut everything. I was like, you know what, just do that. I'm sorry, it's just, even thinking about it right now, it's just sitting, it's just so sad. It's just like so frustrating because there is nothing we could do about it. It's just sad. And thankfully, my husband is in Qatar right now. He is waiting. Hopefully, he will be able to come over soon. But he's still waiting there for more than 10 days. Nothing yet. Hopefully, I hear from him soon, and hopefully he's over. And as a refugee, we have faced a lot of challenges. First of all, the language. When we came here, I spoke English, but my parents did not. None, even right now. Like they barely introduce themselves, barely. Like, oh, okay. My mom just knows the address and my phone number. That's all she knows. Everywhere she goes, she's like, sorry, no English. My daughter, just that's it. She gets the phone number, she gets her address, and that's it. Same thing with my dad. It's the same thing, same problem, you know. The language has been the biggest for us. And everywhere they go, they call me, okay, we have an appointment. We have to go. It's just me going with them. It is hard. It's not easy, you know, that's the first thing. And also we have families, as I said, in Afghanistan. We are supporting them financially. You know, since everything, as Humaira said, like the banks closed right now. Western Union closed, nothing open. At least before we could send some money. It was easier for us to send some money, they could get it. But now with everything is closed. No banks, no Western Union, nothing. So it is hard when I talk to them, like, you know what, whatever savings you have, just try to just use that. You know, unfortunately, there is no way for us to help you guys at this moment. Hopefully soon there will be a way to help you guys financially, but not right now. There is no way for us. It's just so hard, frustrating, and it's just sad. It's just sad that we are in a situation that just our hands are tied. We cannot do anything. It's just sad and upsetting. And also, we have a new arrived family. So my husband's cousin, he just came to our address. He took our address and he came. And I have been calling so many resettlement places like IRC, Catholic Charities, like for housing assistance, right? And they just called me, like IRC called me today and they're like, we are sorry, we cannot help you with the housing. It was just sad, it was just frustrating. I was like, you know what? I have been waiting since last Sunday. They arrived Sunday and I called them Monday. I have been waiting for more than a week and now you calling, telling me, sorry, we cannot help you with the housing. So what are we gonna do now? You know, it's just too hard. Like it is a 3-bedroom for us, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and now we are 10 people in the house. 10 people. Exactly. We have been just, you know, my mom and dad and one of my brothers, they are in the living room. And the 3-bedroom we are sharing. And the guest with their kid and the wife, they have my mom and dad's room. It is just like so packed, our family, you know, with everything going on. But I mean, they are guests, right? We have to take care of. And it's just frustrating. I called Catholic Charities. They are like, it is not guaranteed if we can help you or not. But if you want, you can show up to the office. I was like, okay, we can do that. I mean, if we have nowhere to go, so that's what we could do. I mean, we can try that, right? So it is just frustrating, you know, with the housing, that is one of our biggest issues, especially with the refugees. When they come over, it's just too hard. I know one of the other families, it is almost, I think, 15 days that they are in a hotel. They are paying $150 each night from their welcome money to stay in the hotel until they get a place. $150 a night. It was just like mind blowing to me. It was just upsetting. I was like, what is going on with these refugees? It's just so sad. What are they going to do? That welcome money is for them to just give it for a couple months of their rent in advance, right? To give it until they find a job. They are on their own feet. But now they are paying it in advance for the hotel. They don't even have a place to sleep yet. So what are they going to do next? It is just so frustrating, like listening to people, hearing what they say and seeing it with your own eyes. It's just frustrating. It's upsetting. It's just sad. And I'm so sorry. I'm just like,
okay.
There's so much to talk about. There's so much to say, and you don't even know what to start with and what to end with. It's just too much to talk about. And also, thank you so much to the class. I have worked with License to Freedom on and off since we have started. Since we came here in 2017, and my parents and some other Afghan community members were joining the ESL class in acculturation and here, and we had, a really good time because there we could access a lot of resources, right? More than we could with this program, and also and the Afghan community could go to a larger community, right? And they could go to, also get involved in a larger community. Though we have received a lot of help since 2017 with my family, still there are a lot of help needed, a lot of help. Because like right now, 4 adults in our family working, just barely making the expenses for the 7 people we live in the house right now. Especially with the living cost, it's too high in San Diego, very high. Thinking about it, it's just like, okay, so we pay like more than $2,000 for a 3-bedroom. It's even that's better right now because it became 2017. We never moved out. Right now, searching for an apartment which is 2-bedroom, 2-bath, it is getting a 3-bedroom, 2-bath is like $2,400, $2,500, $3,000, which is a lot. And the refugees who are coming, they are working full time. Sometimes, I used to do 2 jobs, full time and a part time. But since everything with my husband, I quit my full-time, I kept my part-time because I was like, no, it is too much. I have to deal with a lot of paperwork for my husband and everything, and then do the job, work one of the jobs. And now it's hard. I live with my parents. When my husband comes over, I have to move out. How am I gonna afford the $1,700 per month for a 1-bedroom? How?
Yeah, thank you, Shabnam. I think, thank you so much for sharing. All those examples are
Thank you for having me.
so important for all of us to hear. We really appreciate you being here and sharing with the first experience, and also, when you went back and the work License to Freedom is doing. I think Mumtaz is back with maybe by his phone. If you want to say a few more things, Mumtaz.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry because my internet was weak, so it cut off.
Maybe you can talk about the organization, Mumtaz, if you have, because we can go back and forth with
yes.
on later.
So I will be very short. I'm going to start coming up from there. So since I've been in the United States, I've been trying to help my community members through providing mental services, providing community support, and civic engagement. So community-wise, we help our newcomer. For example, one of our friends called me that his name is Rashid, living in motel, paying from his own pocket. I went to him and I saw him that I saw trauma on his face, seeing that their mental health issue is not also good. He was suffering financially, and yet there was no resettlement agency to take care of him, and there was no any other support as well. And honestly, we don't know the housing. They don't know the housing process. They don't know the welfare system. They don't know how to find a job. They don't know where to go to take their permit, DMV permit. As a community member, I had to help them with some of the stuff, with the basic things that we could. So I actually introduced them to PANA. PANA is a great organization, as she, Humaira is working for PANA, and I talked to Humaira about it, and then Panak was able to help us financially, and Rashid was so happy with all the finance that we took care of him. And as a later on, as I mentioned, I also take into consideration the mental services. As a crisis counselor, I work with them, and I introduce them the resources after I listen to them carefully. What do they need? As a community, we are making sure every refugee is doing well here, and their family is doing well as well, because everyone who is coming here, they have a lot of problems. They suffered already a lot of problems, and we don't want to be burdened over them. So we are trying much and more in order to reduce that burden, and we provide them basic needs and all other things which is required with the passage of time. Like we talked about resettlement agencies. They're not there, in urgent cases. So we need a huge budget, a huge funding for these people, so we can take care of them. As a community member, I cannot do a lot of things, so unless I take some help or I need a helping hand. So Afghan Community Culture Center, I'm going to talk about the Afghan Community Culture Center. As Amina talked about it, it's recently established here, and it has staff, it has president, it has vice president, everything is available. Why we established this? We established the Afghan Community Culture Center because nobody represented the Afghans here, and there was a lot of misunderstanding. I think a lot of organization, they are still working with Afghans, but we do not take straight benefits from that. So as an Afghan Community Cultural Center, what we did, we thought that it is completely underserved, it is completely underrepresented, and we as a community need a place to be able to go, to come to grieve and to celebrate our marriage. So like birth, we could do also birth celebration. We don't have a lot of services right now, but we want to create a place which is purely Afghan driven. This is what I'm emphasizing once again. Like, we want to create a place which is purely Afghan driven, and we want a place for our youth to not lose their cultural heritage. And it is very, very important for us. Right now, we have our youth, they're going in different ways, and they're when I talk to them about some places that we are going to provide you, and we have taken into consideration a culture center for you guys, they're very, very interested to come. They're saying, please provide us that place so we can come and sit and talk and celebrate. That's very important for us. So youth are very, very interested. And as you may know, that 75% of Afghanistan population is the young generation, and most of them are very, very young. The population that we are having here, or the people who are coming to San Diego, most of them are young. So, and also the population that we have here in Al Cajon, it is a lot. It's almost like 700 to 800 families. We want this. We badly need a place like as a community culture center for us, in order to be united, in order to live together. And as we have our main purpose and aim was why we created the 501c, because we saw there is a dire need for a community center. So as a result of that, so we were also, as I mentioned, underrepresented, underserved. So we want the same thing like other communities has it. For instance, Iraq community is well presented, well served. And if you go to the welfare system, we see that there are language services. But if you go, if we are going there, we don't have language services there. We face a lot of problems. We face a lot of challenges. There are Afghans, like if not, there's a lot of Afghans that they don't have language access. It means they don't know how to speak English. So from the one side, we need to create something like a language center for them in order to learn that. From our side, we need all those services. And who is going to be able to do that? We, as a community center, we build this community, Afghan Community Culture Center, in order to provide all those services for our community.
And that is, we have a lot of other problems that I've been in contact with them. For instance, housing. Yes, everyone is concerned about it, but I'm mostly concerned about, as a deputy director of Afghan Community Crisis Center, I'm in close contact with them. So now my friends, there are not my only my friends, there's a lot of other people who are living in motel, and they asked me for financial support, and I told them we don't have anything. I can barely like give you my own money, probably, if that's going to help you as a charity, but I'm just giving you this an example. But I was thinking with myself, I can give him 400 just for their motel, probably it's going to last for a week. But what about after that? We have a consistent housing problem that we want this we want either the county take into consideration to change their policy and make something like proposal, so that we don't have housing a problem in the future. Because as we see that it is a crisis right now, it's a huge crisis, and people are living in motel. And I will give you another example, which is a huge problem. Afghans are living together. Can you believe it? There are two families living in one apartment. We have pandemic, as you know, we have pandemic, and it's not over. We still do the vaccination events here and on and off, and we want to get rid of, first the pandemic, and now from on top of that, one is the vaccination, I mean the COVID-19 crisis. From another side, we have this refugee newcomers here. This is another crisis for us. It's really hard to handle it. So we really need support for this. We want, this to happen as soon as possible. And the basic needs, we are trying to do the basic needs. There's a lot of organizations, they're trying to take care of that. But here in Al Cajon, since I'm talking to everyone, like I do as much as possible, but I can't do more than this. So I hope I've made it very clear. I'm very, very grateful. I'm very, very appreciated that you listened to me very well, that you really joined us in order to heard our voice, in order to hear our voice. I'm very, very appreciated. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening, and your services and your coordination and your collaboration with Afghan refugees and with Afghan new arrivals. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much, Mumtaz, for sharing those important things that you're doing and the organizational need for Afghan community. I think there's an important note from Shane. We can look into that. I wanted to, before I move to Megan, I wanted to make sure that I'm adding Alliance Healthcare Foundation has been supporting the coalition. I did not add the list. So I really want to apologize. I know we have representation from the foundation, and we're very thankful for that support. So that's one thing I want to do. The next is Majgan Afshan is here. She is community leader, advocate, and also director of Borderlands for Equity. We wanted to see if there's anything you want to add, and we don't have a lot of time, so probably a minute or two. Are you here? Yes.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Sister Amina. And thank you to everybody. I know many of you from the work that I've done in the community for the past 20 years. And for the past 2 years, I've been co-founder of Borderlands for Equity. It is a direct legal services organization based in La Mesa, serving all of San Diego County. My co-founder and I, Susanna Rani, used to both work at CARE San Diego, and previous to CARE San Diego, I used to work for the International Rescue Committee. And some of my colleagues like Claire and other folks are on here, and I appreciate all the work that you guys continue to do. It's really important right now to understand that the needs of the Afghan community are very, very necessary. These are needs that focus on, and I want to make sure that to be clear that there are multiple different groups that are represented in the newly arrived refugees coming to San Diego. We have our Afghan Community Center that I continue to meet with. In the past several weeks, we've sat down with all of the different aspects and different parties of Afghan community members that have come into San Diego. And we continue to provide services for them on the ground without any charge and without any kind of support. We have never been part of this meeting, and I have never gotten a chance to meet with you all. So thank you so much for allowing me to join you today. What we need to do is make sure that we understand that the needs are they're varying, in the sense that there are also, besides SIVs, the Shia minority that Shabnam beautifully brought up. As part of the Shia minority of Muslims in the Afghan community, we know that they are targeted beyond all recognition from the Taliban. And so it's very critical that we continue to support those individuals that are also targeted here in the United States. I don't know if many people understand that, but as a Shia minority member, I myself have been targeted in San Diego as well as other places. And I think it's not just a newcomer refugee issue, it is an ongoing issue for our Muslim minorities that are facing this type of marginalization. And then on top of that, we have been continuing to do advocacy with the Board of Supervisors and the Governor's Office to make sure that we, number one, make sure that we create a temporary housing pipeline, streamline those services so no families, as Mumtaz perfectly brought up, are stuck in multiple families in the same spaces. We are also working towards making sure there's a permanent housing issue that can be brought up and dealt with by either the federal government or the county of San Diego. And we need and will continue to need support about this issue. We have also been able to secure the support of the community in wanting to provide services such as evacuee help at the airport, as well as making sure that people have translation services here on the ground in San Diego. We have continued to work with the partners that have come out. And just last week, we held a vigil with over 400 members of our diverse community that attended, as well as Mumtaz and other members of our community came out to support. And as an Afghan American that has been doing this work for 20 years and a trusted voice, I want to make sure that we center Afghan leadership and the Afghan organizations that are continuing to support our communities and protect them. Because at this time, as you guys know, there's a lot of people that are trying to capitalize and create opportunities for themselves that do not work with the Afghan population or identify with the Afghan population. And we want to be able to, in the first time in 20 years, be able to center Afghan voices and the Afghan leaders that are the trusted community members that we can count upon. So yeah, if you have any questions, thank you so much for allowing me to join you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll pass it back to Megan.
Thank you, Amina. Thank you, Mejgan. Really appreciate Mumtaz and Shabnam and Humaira and everybody. And I just want to sort of highlight something that Mejgan just pointed out to remind us that we are talking about a beautiful and diverse group of people. There is no monolithic identity that every Afghan person or Afghan American shares. And so it's important that as we're thinking about what are these big picture services that are needed and resources, we also recognize that each person needs a hand to hold, a person to speak with, somebody who understands and can help them navigate their personal situation through these larger systems. So we're going to momentarily go to what we could think of as a Q&A or a discussion. We have 30-ish minutes left on our time together today. So how I'd like to organize that is around some of these big topics. So we'll collect questions on a particular topic and then invite our speakers or others who might have things to add to that, to speak to that general topic, rather than going one question by one question. So start thinking now about housing, which I'm going to actually ask one of our guests here to address momentarily. Basic needs and financial support, which came up a little bit in terms of the welcome money and how people are able to settle here. Mental health generally, but mental health, which we know the primary, secondary, and probably tertiary traumas that people are experiencing right now, on top of the fraught situation that they're coming into, or that they know that they're dealing with their families and children here, is important. And then sort of culture and building community, right? So what is this community of Afghan leadership that is supporting their own? So think in those categories and go ahead and start popping some questions into the chat, and we'll collect those and invite our speakers to address them. And while we're doing that, I want to acknowledge Shreya Sasaki, who's here from Jewish Family Services of San Diego, which is one of the refugee resettlement agencies. We have between vacations and people doing important jobs, nobody else was able to make it. But we talked about like the experience of presenting at the resettlement agencies. We heard about the shortage of housing, and we know some of the constraints that come with addressing problems with federal money that allows you to do certain things, but not everything you would want to. So I just want to invite Shreya to say a couple words about what's happening in that area, and then we'll dive off into discussion. And I should also say thank you to Shreya, who is a board member at Catalyst as well.
Thank you, Megan. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you all for sharing what's happening in the community. As a resettlement agency, one of several in our community, I just want to highlight all that's been said so far and to say and recognize we're feeling the same thing. Housing is not only a need in what we're talking about today, but more broadly as a county and as a region. Housing continues to be that issue that makes it really difficult for families to succeed and to build their homes, to build their families, and to build the resiliency that they need. So we are, like many of you, doing our best to balance how we can manage temporary to permanent housing and work with the donations and things that we're receiving, because it just becomes, again, like I said, a balance, because we want to keep families in an apartment, out of temporary homes, so that they can build those communities, get their children to school, find those employment opportunities and resources, and a permanent housing source is what allows our families to get to where we want them to get to. And so we are challenged with the same thing and are trying to manage what we can get from a donation perspective to meet basic needs. Pots and pans, clothing, car seats, if that can be donated, that gives us a little bit more room to work within what's provided for the rental costs of housing. And so I just wanted to recognize that and say that I look forward to working with many of the Afghan leaders here today to continue to provide, supportive translation services and whatever is needed. So thank you, Megan, for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shreya. Please go ahead and pop some questions in there if you have one that you'd like to speak out loud. While we're waiting for that, Shane, you've been active, and thank you in the chat for keeping that lively with the People's Association of Justice Advocates. You mentioned, and I'm looking at the story on CBS 8 right now, but you mentioned a proposal to the county to sort of step up and make a statement. Is there anything you want to share about that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Megan, and thank you to Catalyst for organizing this collective meeting. And thank you to the Afghan leaders who have spoken on this call, who by far, this is the most important time out of all of this time to center Afghan leadership. So I absolutely agree. We at the People's Association of Justice Advocates, which is a national civil rights organization and policy institute, worked on a proposal with some Afghan leaders, more or less on the younger side at UCSD and others, who we worked on a proposal in the urgency of time after we did a somewhat of an analysis on what the county's current investment in specific pertaining to Afghan refugees has been. And so after our analysis, and I spoke with Chris Olson over at Jewish Family Services and has spoken with other organizations, it became very clear they can't jump out on record like maybe I can at this time, but it became very clear that there has not been a plan from the county and the chairman of the county pertaining to Afghan refugees, and in particular, meeting the bandwidth and potential influx. And so we pulled together a proposal that requested that the county, number one, went on record. Last Tuesday, we requested the county go on record with this proposal and declare that the county welcomes Afghan refugees, which the county has not done as of now. And Afghan refugees need to be specifically centered, in my belief, because this is the crisis at hand right now. This is the house that is burning right now. And the county should declare that to activate a federal request that allows the county to issue a letter to the federal government, among other things. So we asked that, and then we asked the county to pull together a housing accommodation plan, which in my mind would look like the county investing both in the temporary and long-term plans regarding housing. And what I had heard from many was that there's not enough housing with the organizations that are already serving refugees. We got to remember that's for all refugees. And number two, in many cases, and number two, the refugee influx, Afghan refugee influx that could potentially be met, it became very clear that the county didn't have an influx plan. So we asked the county to pull together a housing accommodation plan and direct for county supervisors to direct staff.
Okay, thanks, Shane. I'm gonna go ahead and stop you there. Thank you.
Okay.
Great to hear about the communication with the county. Let's go to Humaira to address some of this, and then we have a couple of questions about culture and mental health.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to state that it is absolutely vital to center refugees and Afghan refugees in particular on this issue. Or many of our organizations have been calling for localities to do more at this moment. Cities like Fremont have been creating funds to support refugees directly. I believe Anaheim is doing the same. There's a lot that could be done at the county level, but I also think that we shouldn't take away from the fact that the administration could do more. There are vouchers in place to support high-risk individuals for housing, including folks with disabilities and folks facing homelessness and things like that. Refugees can be added as a community that receives these kinds of vouchers and funding. And so I think that as we talk about refugee resettlement in a broad level, it's really important for us to tackle this issue at all levels of government, and to continue to not only work on that, but just the broad amount of issues that are going to be faced by Afghan refugees in the coming.
Great, thank you, Humaira. I know this group has been in touch with one another, coordinating, making sure that every day new information is absorbed and the voice of Afghan refugees and Afghan Americans is leading. Forgive me, you'll tell me how to pronounce your name, but Soleiman, do you have a comment about this housing issue?
Yes, not particularly for the housing issue, which I know there's a lot of issues and problems. Just wanted to introduce myself. My Soleiman Saifi. I've been living here in San Diego for the last 31 years. I was myself the original refugees during the Soviet War, who I relocated to the United States of America as a refugee, political asylum back in 81. Living here in San Diego for over the last 31 years, I've seen this Afghan community grow tremendously. When I located here, and I attended San Diego State back in 91, 92, and eventually graduated. There was hardly, most of the community I knew firsthand. A lot of them were extended family members and acquaintances. But over the last, I would say probably about 15, the last 20 years, it's grown tremendously. And it's so wonderful to see so many organizations where before, years and years ago, it wasn't available to our Afghan community. And unfortunately, under the circumstances that we're all faced with, whether we have family members still in Afghanistan or some of them might be out, or even within the community here, there's a lot of needs. housing is a huge issue and problem. I myself graduated from San Diego State, psychology background, and then also had an MBA program that I went through and got my master's. And I've been working as an interpreter, face-to-face, virtual interpreting with a couple of different companies here within San Diego. And I have, when I worked for United Healthcare, I worked with a lot of other organizations. PANA was one, IRC was another. As a matter of fact, I worked with Mujgan several times. My job at that particular time was working with the outreach community and just giving information about different programs that United Healthcare would offer. And one of the other organizations who I worked with Doctors Without Borders, we offered flu shots during flu season every year at different locations for underprivileged and the low-income communities who I was very familiar with. So I just wanted to thank everybody today and introduce myself and any help that I can be within the organizations, within the community. I'm here and I'll put my information on there as well. But I thank you, everyone.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for introducing yourself.
You.
We could probably speak about the housing question for hours, but I want to bring up a couple of the other notes in the chat just now that I think are a little bit connected, asking about what are the mental health challenges that have been rising in the Afghan community or in the African American community, and what are some of the supports that might be offered right now, things we could think about ramping up or providing resources to or connections to. And I think that's a little bit connected probably to a question about, for those immigrants who have been in the country, is that a resource that is being utilized, tapped into? I'd welcome any of our panelists or folks who are doing this work to chime in.
I can add. I can add to this. So we have a lot of, as Sulaiman mentioned, and a dear good friend of mine that we've worked with in regards to the San Diego Refugee Forum, of which I'm still part of and as treasurer and part of their board. It's important to understand that it's really two different groups of Afghan communities. There's the communities that people like Humaira, Sulaiman, and myself are part of, that our families came 30, 40 or plus years ago, even 20 years ago even. And then the separate community, which Mumtaz and Shabnam Jan are a part of, which have arrived within the last 5 or 6 years, I think you guys would say, or 6 or 7 years. And those two communities are very vibrant and very strong, but they're also very unique because they've experienced life in different ways, and the trauma is real. And so what we're trying to do is connect our people who have already been part of the community with supporting the needs of the community that are arriving. But mental health is a huge issue, and the trauma that they've experienced as a result of the withdrawal in Afghanistan right now, and everything kind of unraveling, is a serious issue. And so what we're wanting to do is to make sure to connect Afghans that are coming in with mental health resources and organizations that will be able to support their treatment, really, or to be able to talk to them within either healing circles or being able to put them in culturally competent conversations with each other. And of course, understanding the gender divide within the Afghan culture. As newly arrived refugees are going to be very different in terms of their cultural identity and how they're comfortable in communicating. And so exactly, De La Croix, as she mentioned, and an amazing provider of this a service as well. These are the folks that we want to continue to work with and also amplify, because the work on the ground is going to be a long-term commitment with creating spaces for these folks that are really holding on to a lot of trauma. And to the next question about foster care, we're working with an organization that's already set up I think it's been over 100 trainings in the past several weeks that is working towards getting as many Afghan Americans licensed and understanding the foster care process. And so we have a community leader that Sulaiman knows as well. Her name is Sofia Fani, who's a licensed, certified social worker, as well as foster care parent herself, who has taken on hopefully hopefully helping our county administrators process the newly arrived children that are coming to San Diego that are possible children that we can be given into foster for the Afghan families that are here. And because
if we could just wrap it up, I'm going to let a couple of other folks speak.
Sure. So as in regards to the foster care issue, there is an immediate need of making sure that we have Afghan families that go through an expedited process of the Afghan, of the foster care licensing program, which we know is available in certain special circumstances. So we're trying to also work with the county, and Cipriano Vargas is here from Supervisor Lawson Rimmer's office that we've been discussing about this with as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mishkan. Great, so let's go to Mumtaz, and then I'm going to invite Shabnam and Humaira and Amina if you have any closing words to say, and then we'll talk about what comes next. Mumtaz.
Yeah, thank you, Megan, Thomas, so much. Here, I want to talk about the, there's a reflection of voice back.
A little bit. Go ahead and keep talking and we'll see if it's okay. No, now you're muted.
Okay, is that okay right now?
That's great.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the mental health problems with Afghan issues. So I've met a lot of people. They are feeling down. They're not enjoying what they used to do. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, we're just going to turn your video off. I think you'll be all right. You're okay. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry.
I think we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Mumtaz, are you trying to share about the 188 number? Because I think Claire was going to talk about that if you want, since you're cutting off.
Yeah. So I just want to give one example of how the Afghans are feeling when I meet them face to face. So there are, I'm going to make it in a nutshell. So they have been feeling, I think the crisis is very, very impactful negatively. So they're feeling down after I talk to them since a couple of weeks when they're here, and they're not enjoying what they used to enjoy. And they're so depressed. And that's also a very big issue. And some of them, as they couldn't tolerate the crisis in Afghanistan, they are right now, some people I know, they are in hospital. And I talked to them last night. I told them, like, where are you? And I wanted to take care of him in terms of the mental issues, but he was in the hospital already. So these are the issues that I want to talk about. But since Claire is going to take from here, I'm going to stop. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mumtaz. Claire, go ahead, and if we could say maybe 2 minutes, that would be great, and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, I just need 45 seconds. I think what Mumtaz was mentioning, our Cal Hope crisis counseling program operates a 188 warm line, hotline style referral system. I'll drop the number in the chat. We staff it with our 26 crisis counselors who collectively speak 18 different languages, Pashto, Dari, and Farsi being 3 of those, or 2 of those. And so yeah, that's one way that if you know anyone who needs kind of immediate mental health support, emotional support, and then also connection with some basic resources, we've got that as well. So I'll drop that in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Shabnam, Humaira, or Amina, do you want to say a last couple words?
Thank you. So just my last request from the administration would be just the housing. That is the most important one. You know, people coming as a refugee, or like they are seeking asylum here. They are coming here to get help, but when they come here, they face a bigger crisis of housing. Like they stay in their family's houses. As I said, like we are 10 people right now in a 3-bedroom. And it is just hard. It's just not me right now. It's just like all the families. Almost like I would say 50% of the families right now, they are hosting. I'm pretty sure about that, because no arrivals, because of the no arrivals, and housing is the biggest. So if there is anything that could be done, please just, that is my request. And thank you so much for having me. It was great and meeting every one of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Humaira?
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. I think we can continue to work together. We each can play our parts in this and ensuring that Afghanistan is not forgotten, that it continues to be something that we all care about, that we advocate for, and that we, open our doors and our hearts to. So happy to have conversations offline about this, but just really appreciate Megan, for you creating this space, and for SDRCC to create this opportunity for us to get together today.
Thank you. Amina?
Yeah, thank you, Mara. I just want to say thanks to everyone who came today. I don't have anything else to add, but I know that this meeting is initially, it's not like the end of it. Like, I think we have a lot of work to do. So it's a matter of coming back to each other and having focus areas like housing, mental health, and others, to really push for these changes and support for our Afghan community.
Wonderful. Thank you. So in the last few moments, I'm going to flip back to one closing slide and let you know what happens next. So Catalyst, the organization that I am working with, Catalyst of San Diego and Imperial counties, is a network of funders. But really, we work at a cross-sector level to bridge community needs to the resources wherever they might come from. And I want to acknowledge again and thank Shreya, who you heard from, who's on our board, and Sarah Lyman from Alliance Healthcare Foundation is on our board. Jacob James and Lenise Andrade, who are on our policy committee, are all here today because this is the sort of information and connections that we seek to build so that we can do our utmost to build an ecosystem, a system that works for the people who who need it, right? And we know that the system is broken. Many systems, the housing system clearly is broken, but there's so much that we can all do when we come together. So what is that going to look like in the coming days? We are recording this session, as I mentioned, to provide it to you so that you can refer back to it or share it with folks who have questions or want to catch up. And we'll share the slide shows and the contact information. If you didn't catch it in the chat, we'll make sure that all gets out there, because I think one of the things that we're witnessing here today is that everyone is giving them themselves primarily, right? Their time, their energy, their knowledge, their support, their emotions. And that's the number one thing. And then we also, of course, need the financial resources and policy work. To Aaron's question, thanks so much for being here, Aaron. The Refugee Communities Coalition is developing an inventory of what are the community assets, what do we have on hand, and what are the needs, so that we can start to fill those gaps and identify what costs can be filled by existing resources and where we need to start to generate some philanthropic support, move around some of the public support if we can, and really be effective as quickly and effectively as possible for the real needs on the ground. We're looking at some deeper dive conversations. We know we just touched the surface today. And also, again, things are dynamic and changing. And so we need to keep up with one another and have a place to come together and coordinate and keep folks informed. And particularly as, the targeted audience for this, the intended audience for this was funders and public agencies. We know that, we're a group that isn't necessarily dealing with the day-to-day developments of the work. So it's really valuable, and we appreciate the time that you're taking out of your day to make that possible. And then lastly, from a funding standpoint, Catalyst has a binational migration funders group, and we invite any funder that's interested in this topic to join us. We'll be following that closely, and some of the members are here today. Dr. Bronner's, San Diego Foundation, Price. I'm going to stop there because I'm sure I'll forget someone. That'll be terribly embarrassing. And then lastly, the California Dignity for Families Fund is a $20 million fund held at grantmakers concerned with immigrants and refugees. that was developed initially to respond to the needs of people arriving at the southern border from Mexico and Central America, but has immediately pivoted to recognize a need to also be able to address the needs of people coming from Afghanistan and Haiti. So if that's something of interest to funders, please go ahead and take a look. I'm on the advisory council there and happy to answer any questions. Here's contact information for myself, Amina, and Valerie, who maybe you can just wave. She didn't speak, but she's behind the scenes working very hard. We'd welcome any questions or follow up as we do this work together. That'll all go out in an email, so you'll get it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything you do. I just want to again thank those who spoke for sharing not just information, but a little piece of yourself. We know that every time you relive these ideas and experiences, that is difficult and causes additional pain. And so thank you for sharing your pain and your commitment. So I send you on with love and fortitude and hope to speak with you again soon.